Okay, today is quizzes day, so I am going to show you how to make a quiz. Now first, remember, not global navigation, it's the course navigation menu. You're probably tired of me saying that, so here it is, quizzes. And then click on plus quiz, the beautiful blue button, up at the top right. Now, this is still using that same window. Some of the settings are the same. There's just going to be a few new elements. So we'll name it first. Now you could put any instructions that you want here. You can embed a video. You can do anything that you wanted, that you ever did on a page or a discussion or an assignment. The difference is that if you have them go through question by question, this is always at the top. So my suggestion is that you make it only the most important instructions. The ones that are like, I want this to be visible through the entire quiz. Now let's look at the settings real quick, scrolling down. You can do different things. You can make it ungraded, make it just a practice quiz. You can also do surveys. I'm not going to teach you about those, but you can look them up or you can ask me about them. You can put them in any assignment group. Default is assignments. Now, some of these settings are the same and some are different. So let's start by going through the ones that are the same. So first, you still can assign it to everybody. You can assign it to individuals or groups. You have your due date that will make it show up on the calendar. And you've got your available from and to. So those are all exactly the same as they've always been. Now for some new things. If you have multiple response or multiple choice, you could choose to make the answers appear in random order. Now that's really handy. Of course, if you're doing questions that have all of the above or none of the above, you might want to leave this flipped off. You can also set a time limit if you want, and you see that it's in minutes, as many or as few as you wish. Multiple attempts is good, depending on what you're doing. Sometimes I would give assignments as quizzes, because the quiz has some parts that are self-grading, and so I would allow the kids to do it more than once. But I didn't want them to do it over and over and over and guess the right answer, so I would limit them to 2 attempts or 3 attempts. That way they can't just guess. You could change the quiz score to keep, highest, the latest, or the average. You let them redo it, but it only keeps the latest quiz. Now this has a lot to do with this too. If you allow multiple attempts and you let the student see the correct answers, they're going to get 100% the second time through, and that's not going to be any real evidence of their learning. So you can limit it in some ways. You can make it so that they can only see it from a certain time to a certain time. You'd use that if you wanted them to, say, respond to the correct answers, do some kind of fix activity. They're in class, but you don't want them to just memorize the answers at home. That could work for that, or during your remediation time. You could make it so they can only see the answers once after each try, and you can unlock it so they can see them again. You can manually do that if you want on each individual kid. And so that works. You can also just make it so they can't see the correct answers at all. And it'll mark the incorrect questions, but it won't say what the right answer was. Now, by default, the kids can select whether they want to see all the questions or one question at a time, but you can override that and say just one question, then the next, then the next. You can also, if you want to do something a little bit progressive, so you want, say, question 2, it's just easier sometimes if question 2 reveals the answer to question 1, then you can lock the questions after they answer it. In practice, you probably won't use that very much. I always liked to give them an access code. I would give them a stupid one. don't do a complicated one because they will not type it correctly, and you will sit there typing in codes for a long time. So I would usually choose something really easy in the classroom, and I'd change it every hour. This stops the kid who stays home from trying to get in and take the quiz. I'm going to leave that one off. This is something you can do if you know about that sort of thing, but I'm not going to make it too complicated for you. Then you might be like, well, that's all well and good, but how do I put in any questions? Well, that's up here. In 2 tabs, you click on questions for that. Now you've seen all of the question types. So I'm not going to go through them all. But in general, you can ask your question here. And then you give the answer down below. Whichever one of these you've selected is the correct answer. Now, if you need something a little more robust than just answer, you could click on this and it opens up the full rich text window right there for you, and then click done to make it go away. Delete possibilities with the garbage can. Add possibilities with the add another answer. Now, different questions work different ways. True, false. You see how this one's true, this one's false. True, false, true, false. Most of them work pretty self-explanatory. Some of them get pretty complicated, and you have to code it a little bit. You could come see me if you need some help with those. But for now, let's just stick with some plain old multiple choice. At the end, you could save or you could save and publish. Oh, let me show you one other kind. First, text with no question is if you just want to put some instructions in the middle of your test. They can do a file upload. But this essay question, any kind of short answer question that you have, they could type here. So I liked to do a combination of multiple choice and essay questions, because then a lot of it was graded automatically, and I only had to grade some of them myself by hand. And so that's how you make a quiz. Don't forget to save it in the end.